morning and welcome to Rising. We have a perfectly adequate show for you today, and we are excited to present it, aren't we?
Always, Robby. Always excited to present it to you. We've got an interesting news day for you today. Special counsel Jack Smith will use Donald Trump's own cell phone records against him in his prosecution of the former president for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Per reporting in Axios, Smith plans to call an expert witness who can determine Trump's phone usage after the 2020 election, including on and around January 6, 2021. That includes the periods of time when the Twitter app was open on Trump's phone the day of the Capitol riot, per the court filing.
Yesterday, we learned that the Supreme Court will expedite consideration of Smith's petition that the court rules on the question of whether Trump actually has constitutional immunity from criminal prosecution. Now, a spokesperson for the Trump campaign hit out at Smith's petition with the Supreme Court, telling The Hill, quote, "Crooked Joe Biden's henchman, deranged Jack Smith, so obsessed with interfering in the 2024 presidential election with the goal of preventing President Trump from retaking the Oval Office as the president is poised to do that. Smith is willing to try for a Hail Mary by racing to the Supreme Court and attempting to bypass the appellate process."
Meanwhile, CNN's Caitlin Collins caught up with Senator Ron Johnson on the air this week, where she pressed the Republican on his support of the former president. Let's watch.
Democrats have used the civil courts to harass these poor individuals. It's unfortunate. It's a travesty. But that's what Democrats do. They view politics as a blood sport. It was unfortunate. These folks did nothing different than what many Democrats have done in many states throughout our history.
Senator. I mean, there were multiple slates of fake electors, including in your home state. They're acknowledging that they were playing a role in trying to improperly overturn the election. That's what they said.
They got themselves out of a nuisance lawsuit. They agreed to settle a nuisance lawsuit that never should have been brought.
So you think it's fine that someone...
It was a travesty of justice.
You think it's fine that someone who tried to overturn a legitimate election is still on a board that
Democrat electors have done that repeatedly. Democrats have done the same thing.
Republicans
never tried to
been
criminalize it.
Fake slates of electors?
No, it's happened in different states. I didn't come prepared to give you the exact states, but it's happened repeatedly.
All right, there's a couple of things going on there. Let's take maybe just the last one since it's fresh. This idea that what Donald Trump has done is par for the course for what any number of candidates have done, saying that they believe the election results need to be examined for fraud or any other kind of malpractice. That's the analogy Republicans have been making throughout. I think Caitlin Collins did a capable-ish job there of saying, well, actually, there's a distinction here. Are you actually alleging that other presidents or politicos in the history of the United States of America have ever gone this far to try to implement a fraud scheme to submit a fake slate of electors to to Congress? And I didn't find that answer particularly satisfactory. What do you think?
Yeah, look, it is true that Trump's team went a lot further down this rabbit hole than again, Senator Johnson didn't give specific examples of the kinds of things he's referring to, but that they went pretty far. Their efforts were also unlikely to succeed and very clumsy and have resulted in numerous criminal charges for which a lot of them are, pleading guilty to avoid serious jail time. So it was not exactly the, 24 or Homeland or Mission Impossible sort of plot to overthrow the government. And it is true that many Democratic officials and mainstream media voices have complained constantly about the election being unfair or illegitimate when Trump won in 2016. Now, Trump, again, I'm not saying it's a total equivalency, but I think it does strike some people on the conservative side as a bit rich that this has become the most serious offense for which could be leveled at you, election denier, after we heard Hillary Clinton and all her supporters say that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president because of Russia.
Yeah, I will say that the phrasing election denier is not doing what the Democrats wanted to do. And the crime here is much more specific than that. And the crime I would argue, just from an optics perspective, they should have been focused on since January 6th is not, the vague election denial or even the encouraged a riot argument, which of course implicates free speech. It is the multi-week fraud to submit a fake slate of electors to try to circumvent the political will of the people in various states across the United States of America. And that's the point at which he started to prevaricate when Caitlin Collins started to press him a little bit.
And that is that has to do with what we opened the segment with, Jack Smith getting these phone records that seem to me, I think it's hard exactly to tell. So he's reviewed the phone records. He's going to have an expert witness who has some technological expertise, I guess, in what the cell phone data shows in terms of Trump's movements, day of, time after, and then maybe during those ensuing weeks. But I think it's a bit hard to tell exactly what's going on here. But I think what they're trying to say is, because other people had access to Trump's phone, maybe the tweet about Mike Pence on the day of January 6th was actually written by someone else and not Trump. Or maybe it was written by Trump, but this expert is going to be able to, I guess, offer testimony that, we know Trump does, 6 laps around his living room or something, and that's where the text came from, or that's where the tweet came from. So we know that was Trump, that kind of thing, which to me seems like not focusing necessarily on the most compelling part, as you were saying, of this whole indictment against Trump. But I will have to wait and see, so we're just speculating.
I haven't seen much reporting on how they expect to use these phone records against Donald Trump. The indictment was specific to say that this is not about things that he said on 1/6. This isn't a speech case. I think they were very self-aware that that was the critique they were going to get for bringing these charges, and they went out of their way to say this isn't about his statements on that day. If you were trying to make a case about incitement, I could see maybe why you would want these records. I could see having an interest in the records to see, is there going to be a defense where he argues that he tried to prevent the riot from happening, that he made calls in an effort to, bring down the temperature or to coordinate with Capitol Police or do things to try to prevent it escalating on the way that it did. I think that could be exculpatory, at least rhetorically for him, and maybe these calls can help prove the counter case, but none of it seems to go to the core of the crime here, which is the conspiracy in the weeks leading up to 1/6 to submit the fake slate of electors.
They're going to say that at this time you received a call or a text from Mark Meadows or from Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or whoever or your son or people who are saying, hey, it's getting really bad. You got to do something. You should do something about this. This looks so bad for us, and you didn't do it, and he didn't do anything about it. That's what they're going to demonstrate by showing, when his fingers were literally on the buttons, which is not, right, as you're saying, is not really what's at stake here, is not really the thrust of his failure to do more on Jet. You can not think he should be president because of that. You can think that's a moral failing. But again, that is his speech. That is his speech-related choices. And they've not charged him with incitement because it'd be laughable to try to do so.
Right.
This should be about the actions that his associates took to submit a fake slate of electors. And I don't know that they're laser focused on that because of the January 6th, January 6th, that obsession that exists in the media and in a lot of people who hate Donald Trump.
Well, of course, everything is political. Everything that all the parties are doing is political. And when you look at moments like this and what the phone records could potentially prove, that does highlight the extent to which this might be a political case that's being made here to create bad optics around a presidential candidate, so that you can argue, here's a guy who obviously didn't respect our institutions. Here's a guy who, when in his last moments of leading the country, in the last days of leading the country, didn't do what he could to keep these sacred institutions safe. There are people, institutionalists, who care about those kind of arguments, and maybe that's what this groundwork here is all about. It is also worth just mentioning the last piece of this is the special counsel trying to keep these court dates on track to get a resolution of this before the election by skipping over the appellate process and going and try to get the Supreme Court to weigh in on whether or not he has presidential immunity here. This is apparently a very unprecedented practice. We'll see if it actually gets taken up by the Supreme Court. Of course, a lower court held that he did not have the extensive immunity that he was hoping for. So we'll definitely stay tuned on that one and keep you apprised of any updates.
Yeah, for sure. More Rising right after this.